Welcome to SB&M is Here, the State Bar of New Mexico's official podcast. In this series, we'll discuss topics such as professional development, tools of the legal trade, and mental and professional well-being. Connecting the legal community across New Mexico, SB&M is here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Season 3 of SB&M is Here. This is Morgan Pettit, Member Services Manager and Podcast Producer. This episode is from the Committee on Women in the Legal Professions #LawMom Initiative. The Committee on Women created the #LongMom series in 2016 as a way to hold discussions around having a legal career and managing parenting responsibilities. The title of this episode is twofold. First, it allowed a wonderfully candid discussion between all our panelists in the hopes of sharing experiences for other law moms out there. And second, the topics and questions discussed are posed for the legal community at large and how you, dear listener, either as a managing partner, coworker, supervisor, or authority figure, can help better and strengthen the legal community for new moms and parents as they navigate such a momentous and beautiful milestone such as parenthood. We are lucky enough to steal some time from 3 law moms for this episode. Allison Block-Chavez leads the discussion with Asia Brooks and Jensen Wallace. Ladies, thank you for your time and handing it off to you.
Hi, and welcome to the Committee on Women in the Legal Professions #LawMom podcast series. I'm Allison Block-Chavez. I'm a member of the Committee on Women in the Legal Profession. And today we're going to talk about surviving new motherhood. And with me today are Asia Brooks and Jensen Wallace. And the 3 of us are relatively new moms. And we're going to talk a bit about some issues affecting us as we are lawyers and navigating motherhood. So let me introduce myself. My name's Allison Block-Chavez. I'm a partner at the law firm Aldridge, Hammer, and Wexler. I do a lot of estate planning and trust work. And I am a relatively new mom. I've got twins that are 11 months old, a boy and a girl. And I'm excited to talk to Asia and Jensen today and hear about their experiences. So I'll let Asia introduce herself, followed by Jensen.
Thank you, Allison. I'm really excited to be a part of this podcast today. As a relatively new mom, I think my child is going to be 3 in November. And so I still think of myself as a new mom because I feel like I'm learning new things every day. But my name's Asia Brooks. I work at the 2nd Judicial District Court as the director of our center's self-help and dispute resolution division. I will be starting a new job in about a week. So I'm very excited about that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I am involved with the bar. Also, I'm on the board of bar commissioners along with Allison, and have been a part of the Committee on Women in the Legal Profession and certain events, and I'm also on the Committee on Diversity in the Legal Profession.
Great, thanks, Asia. Yeah, I'm also pretty involved with the bar, and both of us have been on many podcasts, so I hope people aren't tired of listening to us. All right, Jensen, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your family?
Thanks, Allison. I'm Jensen Wallace. I practice family law. I just started at Terry and DeGraw. I have 3 kids, 5, 3, and an almost 1-year-old. My 5-year-old just started kindergarten, so that has been a whole new adventure. But it's going great so far. I am current co-chair of the Committee on Women in the Legal Profession. So it's been nice to see both of you at events before and help out. And I am just excited to be here and talk about navigating mommyhood while being a lawyer.
Great, thanks everyone. So the first question we have, it kind of is starting on the negative end, is what are we getting wrong about working mothers, particularly in supporting mothers? And I don't know, I was trying to think about this one. One thing I know that I've needed, along with a lot of our staff in our office who had babies around the same time I did, was being sure to support them and giving them flexibility, because some nights, at least in my experience, some nights I don't know how much sleep I'm going to get. And so getting being able to sleep in an extra hour makes a difference. Or I don't know, luckily we have a nanny and family members that help us with caregiving, but they're not very reliable all the time. So there might be a morning where someone calls and says they're sick and can't come. And so then I'm scrambling for a caregiver. And so being able to have some flexibility at work, and that my law partners understand that, that's been very helpful. What about you guys? What do you think?
I would agree with you, Allison. I actually had the word flexibility written down here. And so I think there's kind of this idea with work, and I think it's changing. The pandemic kind of changed some of the ideas of how we think about where you need to be, like what hours you need to be at work, like if you can telework, all of these sorts of things. So I think the conversation is changing. But I do think there's this kind of notion that motherhood's this thing that you can do, and you can do it at the same time as other things. But I think that there's a lack of compassion and a lack of just acknowledgement of what's actually going on as a mother, right? I think even when I was thinking about taking leave, right, when I was pregnant and I was gonna have my baby, and I'm thinking about how much leave I'm gonna take once my baby is born, and I'm like, all right, well, 12 weeks kind of seems like a long time. But then you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like no time at all. I don't know if either of you felt the same way, but I was just like, I just had a baby. Like I just had a human. And it seems, it kind of in your mind, it seems like a long time, but then when you're doing it, you're like, you're getting attached to your child, you're meeting them for the first time, you're learning about them. And so I think, other countries, I know there are other countries who give a longer amount of time off and family leave. And so I think that that's something that we can definitely do better on. One of my husband's friends lives in Sweden, and he got like 6 months of paternity leave. And so that wasn't even maternity leave, that was paternity leave. And I'm like, that seems to make more sense to me. So yeah, that's what I would say is definitely in line what you're talking about in flexibility, and just like understanding that this is not like an easy thing that just, people can just do and just pick right back on up and keep going, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Go ahead, Jensen. Let's hear what you think.
I'm going to say the exact opposite. I think because of COVID, we have the ability to work remotely. There's so much flexibility. And so my husband's job is far less flexible. He doesn't have control over his schedule. And so because I have been given so much flexibility and control over my schedule, it's resulted in me constantly being like the default parent. So when daycare calls and a kid is sick, it's me. When daycare is closed because of COVID, it's me. I'm the one doing all the doctor's appointments. When my son had early intervention therapy, that was all me. And so sometimes I wish I had less flexibility and I could say, I really can't come home. Gotta call my husband. So I am really grateful for all the flexibility. Like it's both ways. But it also is hard when it all falls on me because I have the flexibility. And I think, like Asia was saying, maternity leave is a whole separate topic that I think we can get into. But flexibility can be good, but at some point, I wish it wasn't all on me and I could just say, I can't, call somebody else.
Yeah, I had to have a conversation with someone in my office about being the default parent, and that, while my husband does help and support me as a mom, most of the time you're the default parent, where, my husband keeps telling me, you're the CEO of our family. And I've been thinking about that lately. And I said, that sounds good. But then I'm thinking, I don't want to be the CEO. I want to be a partner. But it just, you end up being the default parent, scheduling doctor's appointments, figuring out childcare, getting groceries, figuring out what the kids are going to eat, figuring out clothes, and so it is tough when whether you have the flexibility or not, to have all that extra responsibility on your shoulders. And then, yeah, maternity leave, going back to what you said, Asia, yeah, it did, especially being a lawyer, right? Because we work so much. It's like 12 weeks. I can't even imagine being gone from my office for 12 weeks. And then, yeah, it was, you know, for me, it was the end of the year. So I had all the holidays. And so I was starting back in January, and, you know, things you don't even think about, like none of my work clothes fit. So I don't know what I'm going to wear. And I'm still dealing with that now 11 months later. And so there's just things where, yeah, you can't just jump right back in where you left off because you're a different person. Things have changed physically, mentally, emotionally, and you've got a lot more on your shoulders. So I'd love to have 6 months or a year of maternity leave. That sounds wonderful. So let's see what's next. So we started getting into daily stressors. Maybe let's talk a bit more about that. I mentioned childcare. Luckily, I'm fortunate to have family and a nanny, but that's not always consistent. And so we've got plan A and plan B, and then people to fill in. And when that's not going smoothly, that's a big stressor for me. What about for you guys? What are some daily stressors that you have to deal with?
Like you, Allison, I have some pretty good family support here in Albuquerque. So my sister and my parents all have moved to Albuquerque in the last 4 years. And so I think me having my child is actually what brought my parents here. I'm almost 100% sure. They're like, we want to see our grandchild all the time. So I'm very, very, very lucky to have them here. And they watch him for a good chunk of time during the week. My husband is a solo practitioner and works from home. So unlike Jensen, I am the person who's at work all the time, and my husband does, I guess, the default parent most of the time. And so I'm sure he has some very interesting thoughts about me. But I think one of my biggest stressors in being, you know, the other person who you know, has the less flexible schedule and things is just like making time. And feeling like I am not making enough time to be with my family. You know, and 2-year-olds will put you through the ringer, right? Like the other day, he was like, I don't love you, I love Dada. And I'm like, well, have a good day. I'm going to work. And so I think just trying to get that balance right. And, you know, I don't know if balance is really the right word, but just trying to be aware of my time and where I'm scheduling. And, you know, I do want to be there to take him to the park. I do want to be there to take him to the zoo and to have some time off just to spend with him. And so that's one of the things that daily I'm like, all right, let's figure this out. Like, let's balance this. And like we said, we're involved people. And so I think even outside of our jobs, we're involved with other volunteer things or community things. And so one of my biggest stressors is trying to kind of organize myself to make sure that my family's a priority.
I think my biggest stressor right now is just our daily life, because there's 3 kids. We've got 1 in elementary school, 2 in daycare. And so I leave so early in the morning that the baby has just gotten up. So I see the baby like 10 minutes before I leave. Then I take the oldest to school. Then I go to work. Then I pick her up. My husband brings the boys home. And then we make dinner and just do bedtime. So we just have no time to sit and be as a family. And then we've got all the other activities like gymnastics and swimming and those things. And so there's just like no time to ever do anything. But at the same time, I really love working. And so I love being able to go interact with adults. And I worked hard for my law degree, and I'm happy I get to use it. So it is hard, and I don't think it's possible to balance ever. It's just, you can't do it. And I keep telling myself at some point they're not going to be so little and the baby's not going to go to bed at 7:30 and I will actually be able to see him during the day. But it makes the weekends a lot sweeter, I think, when we have that time to spend together as families. But just daily life right now is busy and hard. And I don't know that there's anything to do to fix that or improve it. I think that's just how it is. And acknowledging that it's hard right now, but it will get better helps me get through it.
So last month, my husband and I and our babies, we all got COVID, which was terrible. We were sick, but luckily it was fine. But I keep telling people it was actually a wonderful week because we couldn't work because we didn't have caregivers. So we each had to have a kid. And we just spent a week together playing and spending time with the kids and watching TV. And it was such a wonderful week. And I, like you, Jensen, it's like the day's crazy where you don't have much time with them. And so I keep thinking about that and then waiting for the weekends where we could play or go for walks or go to the zoo and having that time and not rushing and being like, okay, it's 6:30, got to get in the bath, got to do books, got to do bedtime. Like that is kind of stressful, but at the same time, without that routine, it'd be even worse. So I absolutely agree with you guys. Having that time and being able to spend time with the kids and family is nice, but time is what we sell and we have limited amounts of it.
The Human Milk Repository is New Mexico's community mother's milk bank. We provide safe, screened, regulated human donor milk for babies that are critically ill or medically fragile. We are New Mexico's only accredited mother's milk bank. You can find us online at www.mothersmilkbanknm.org or call to donate or receive milk at 505-508-5291.
Moving forward, another one of our questions is, about changing motherhood policy. And we've spoken a little bit about that, but what would you guys tell your employers or other firms about supporting mothers and what they can do better?
So one thing specifically comes to mind for me, and I've seen this at the court just because a lot of folks who work here have families, is thinking about having a children in the workplace policy. I think that, if you have jobs where people do have to be on site, they can't be teleworking, and they do have to come into work, maybe having some consideration for, if somebody needs to bring their child in for, an hour during the week or something like that, they get out of daycare before they get off. And so having them dropped off to them and being able to have their child in the workplace and having, like a policy around that. And so not that that the child will be a distraction, but if someone's in their office and their child is there with them in their office, their door is closed, I think that is something that can be accommodated and should be accommodated, because I do think it's important for like your staff, right? It's important for me as a mom. It's important for my staff, who some of them are also mothers, to be able to be flexible, kind of what we were talking about in the first question. But yeah, so I think that's one thing that could be very helpful, is having some sort of ability for people to bring their children to work.
What do you think, Jensen?
What I've heard from other people, and my experience was a little better, but it sounds like you guys had a better experience, is employers have got to offer more than 6 weeks of paid leave. That is not okay. And so when I was pregnant, I saved every single vacation day. I did nothing because I had to use all my vacation time after I had a baby. And so I still only had 8 weeks, and then the rest was unpaid. And so I had to bring my baby back to work with me because we didn't have childcare. So 6 weeks is not going to work. And it's forcing somebody to come back after 6 weeks. Like, a lot of childcare places won't take babies at 6 weeks. They have to be at least a little bit older. And so it's not okay. And it's not okay to ask people to do unpaid leave either. So that would be my biggest thing. But the other thing that I am trying to implement in my life is I was on a Zoom meeting with a bunch of attorneys, and one person had her kids at home with her because they were doing remote schooling, and she said she was not going to apologize for her children being there. Said, I have kids, I'm a mom, I'm not apologizing for them being here. And so I am trying to also do that. We have children, we are allowed to have children, and we are allowed to work also. And I'm not going to apologize that I have kids and they are in my life. So that is what I'm trying to do. It doesn't always happen. But I think, I mean, men have children all the time, and it's not people, they're, they just continue on their normal life. And so I don't want to feel like I am sorry that I have kids, or I need to work extra hard to make up for having kids, or people think differently of me because they think I can't focus because I have a baby at home or whatever. I'm not apologizing anymore for having kids.
That's awesome, Jensen. I remember we were on a meeting for the Committee on Women, and you were there breastfeeding your baby, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I was like, yes, we need more of this. But yeah, I agree. Just, I think in general, our society is so adverse to having kids in the background, right? They're supposed to be quiet at a restaurant or not interfering with daily life, but it's reality. And so, and they're a part of our community and society. So we shouldn't push them in the closet if they're quote unquote unwanted in the situation. But yeah, talking about finances and paid leave, I luckily had been planning for my pregnancy, so I had short-term disability, but again, that only covered, I think, 6 weeks, and it wasn't full pay. It was only I think about 60 or 70% of what my pay was. And then being a partner at my firm, I could pay myself, but then, I'm not billing time. So I don't know, we're coming up to the end of the year, so I don't know if I'll be quote unquote profitable this year because I paid myself while I was on leave. So, but financially, and then there's all the other costs. Like, I didn't realize once I got out of the hospital that my insurance wouldn't be paying for everything. I still had, I think, $3,000 or $4,000 that I had to pay to the hospital. That wasn't, and it may have been more because we had two, I can't remember, but I was not expecting that after not having my full salary. And so that was pretty rough. And so I think, yeah, looking financially of how firms or employers or even our entire government could better support mothers financially is really important. And I think that goes to our next topic, which is, and I kind of laugh because I don't know how I feel about this, is whether practicing law and being a mother is compatible. So I think depending on where you work, like if you're a private practitioner, right, you're your own boss, you can set your own schedule, you can be flexible, you can turn down cases or not, but there's also drawbacks to that where you don't have coverage or it's dependent on you to make money. So I think it kind of depends. So I'll be curious to hear what you guys think about being a lawyer and a mom and whether it's compatible.
I'll let Jensen go first on this one.
Perfect. I think it is compatible, but like Allison was saying, it also depends what you're doing. So I'm lucky that I practice family law, and most of the family law judges, for some unknown reason, just have not gone back to in-person hearings. And so we do things over the phone or Google Meets, and that has really helped. I miss going to court and I miss seeing people in real life, but it's been easier because I don't have to, if I have a hearing in Farmington, I don't have to drive to Farmington. And so that helps. It's allowed me, I think, to continue practicing the way I want to practice. When things are in person, I can't take cases that are not in Bernalillo County because I can't travel for hearings. And so it can be compatible. I think you have to make it work, and there's sacrifices that have to be made somewhere. Either you're not taking cases you want to take because you can't travel, or you're traveling and making sure that somebody is there with your kids. And it can be compatible, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, I guess as with any job, I think it depends. And I think I have to kind of think big picture on these things sometimes, because sometimes I can get like very negative and very like, oh my gosh, it's all awful, right? Like no one cares. But I think with the pandemic, I think it did bring a level of flexibility and a level of different sorts of expectations for how we perform our jobs, where we need to be to perform our jobs, and things like that. And so I think that things are getting better. I think that employers are really thinking about how they can make things easier. But I think with any job, things take time, right? Family takes time, jobs take time, commitments take time. And so I think trying to figure out how that all happens together is possible. And I think you just have, it's like something that you have to practice, right? It's something that you have to think about, and you have to be aware of. I think I mentioned this, I can get really caught up in work. I like working too, like I love work. But I also love being with my family. And so I have to think about those things and say, how am I going to structure this? How am I going to do this so that I'm really giving time to both of these things that I love, right?
Yeah, I think like you said, like you both said, it depends and you have to make it work. I know for me, every day I go through the struggle. Why am I working? I should just be a stay-at-home mom. But then I remember I've been working really hard to build my practice, to build my business, and all that work is actually starting to realize because my business is growing. And so yeah, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy my practice. I enjoy having a break where I leave my house and, like Jensen said, interact with adults and think about difficult things and try to solve problems for people. So I think there are ways to make it work, but it doesn't happen overnight. I think part of it too is creating boundaries, both for your colleagues and employees and your clients and for yourself, so that, going back to when I get home, I want to be present for my kids and enjoy that time together. Or, I can't work on Sundays because we don't have childcare. So that's our family day and accepting that. But then, my husband's a lawyer too, and he's been pretty busy. So having flexibility or stepping up further on the steps as the default parent to let him go and do work, because in the end, that's what our family needs, or that's for the best for our family at that time. But yeah, I think you can make it work, but like Asia says, it takes time and you have to figure it out. And so I think I'd be interested to hear what you guys say about the pandemic and how that affected your career and family. I had my kids at the end of the pandemic, I guess, if there is an end, but at the end of 2021. So I know you guys, I think Asia, I think your little boy's a quote unquote COVID baby. So how did the pandemic affect you guys?
Yeah, so he was born November 2019, which was kind of the sweet spot because it was before the pandemic took over, right? I think things kind of started happening in China in December. And so like it was a good time because the hospital was able to have my family there, right? Because, during the pandemic, they were having like one person available to be there with the mother during the birth, right? So I missed out on all that, which was good, right? I had my husband there, I had my family there. And so I had him in November, and then I had my maternity leave, and my maternity leave was up in February. And then the pandemic happened in March, right? So it was an interesting time. I hate saying like it helped us, like a pandemic helped us, but I got to work from home during the pandemic. And so he was he was 3 months old. So I got to kind of have an extended time with him because he was little and it was the pandemic. And so it was nice. It was nice to be able to be home with him and telework during that time. It was also very terrifying because that was when nobody knew what this was, right? And so we were very much on lockdown. Like we were had our little family unit and we were not going to grocery stores. We were not going anywhere. So that was really hard having a little one because you're like, oh my gosh, and if I need to go to work, am I going to bring this back home and get everyone sick? And so it was this combination of appreciation and sheer terror. But it was, I will say it was nice because I did get to spend more time with him and see him grow. It was shocking how much he grew in the time that I was teleworking after the pandemic hit. So the next 3 months. So that first 6 months of him being alive was just he was just learning so much. So it was nice to be able to be there with him.
Jensen, what was your experience? Because I think you had 2 during that time, and then you had your 3rd baby during, I guess, the latter part of the pandemic.
Yeah. So I had, when COVID first happened and everything shut down, I had a 3-year-old and a just turned 1-year-old. He was not walking, so he also was completely nonverbal. So those were really hard. Our daycare shut down, and so my husband and I were both trying to work from home while taking care of 2 kids. We don't have a lot of family support. My mom just retired in May, so she's more available now, but it was on us. And so it was impossible. I loved spending time with the kids. I really liked that. We went on walks every day. We baked a ton of stuff. Did I ever meet my billable hour goal? No. But I don't regret that. And so it is not possible, in my opinion, to work at home and try to actually be productive and have kids at home and pay attention to your kids. And they were so little that, I couldn't park them in front of the TV and have them watch TV for an hour so I could call a client. We couldn't do that. And so it was really, really hard, but I loved the time I got to spend with them. And so when their daycare opened back up and they could go, that helped. But we had COVID closures once a month for years, it seemed, and we still have them. And then I had another baby during COVID. And I think at that point we were just kind of used to it. So nothing really changed. We could have one person at the hospital, and then my husband couldn't leave the entire time, or they wouldn't let him back in. So that was a little strange, but it was fine. But just, I think trying to navigate childcare during COVID was really hard, and it definitely does impact your job and your ability to be a good lawyer. But I think I will forever be grateful for the extra time that I had with my kids.
Yeah, we had our babies in October 2021. So similar hospital restrictions where only one person, my husband, could be there. And I think they allowed a support person, but we just, we didn't want to pick favorites. So we just said, no, I can go to the hospital. And it was, I think it ended up being great, although we were in the NICU. So our family was really eager to see them once we all got out. But yeah, luckily it was somewhat normal once we had our kids, and we didn't have to deal with the quarantine or terror of what COVID is or not.
The Spence Law Firm, New Mexico, is here to help. We value co-counsel relationships and will work to assist your firm with our resources, experience, and trial preparation skills. Our team of trial attorneys is family-friendly and understands firsthand the challenges of balancing family priorities with demanding legal work. Call us at 505-832-6363 to talk with our Spence, New Mexico attorney team.
So our final question, and we can talk more about any of these topics too if we missed anything, but what do you wish you knew about becoming a mom and being a lawyer? And I think Jensen's been the mom the longest, so maybe she has more insight. I'm still figuring it out. So Jensen, what do you think?
I think one thing, well, so I was pregnant when I took the bar exam. And so I have been like pregnant or breastfeeding or taking care of a kid for the majority of my entire legal career. I wish somebody told me there's never a good time to have a kid. So don't wait until you find the perfect moment. Like just stop waiting, because one day you're going to wake up and you're going to say, I feel really old. I should have had a baby by now. So just don't wait, just have a baby. And just,
That's what happened to me.
And so it's never going to be perfect. Timing is never going to be good. And even when you're thinking about having like second children or third children, there's never a perfect time, and that's life. And so I have picked, I want to have my kids and enjoy them while I'm able to, while my husband is young enough to, all of these things, while we are able to do all the things we want to do with them, and hopefully not sacrifice too much of my career because I had kids, but that sometimes still does happen. But just have all the babies. That's what I'm going to say. Just have all the babies.
Yeah, I thought, I tried to time our baby, and of course that didn't happen. Like I thought I got advice, oh, your third year of law school is the best time to have a baby. So I'm like, okay, I'll try that. Well, that didn't happen. Then I, took the bar and started work. Well, I didn't want to have a baby my first 2 years of practice. I need to focus. Well, and then, waited, and then there was, oh, but I need to make partner or this or that. And so finally it was like, well, I'm almost 40. I got to get this done. So, so luckily, we've been fortunate enough to have our babies. What do you think, Aisha? What is something you wish you knew?
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you. Just there's not going to be a perfect time. And I feel like I'm always trying to take my like lawyerness into like my momness, and it doesn't work. It like doesn't overlap. So I'm like, oh, this thing will happen, then this, then this, then this. And it's like, nope, not at all. Like this thing will not happen. And then this other crazy thing will happen. And then like your whole plan is just a disaster, right? And so like, I think that I have sometimes these expectations within motherhood that are a result of like my lawyer brain. And lawyer brain and mom brain are two very different things, I think, in many situations. And so, yeah, I think I kind of have to start thinking like, hey, who knows what's going to really happen today, right? Any number of things could happen. And so just got to kind of roll with the punches and like, and be flexible. And so, that's what I've learned is just like, and my son is 2 right now. So like I said, he's really putting me through the ringer in a good way. The other day he was in timeout and I was like, oh, he'll say he's sorry and he'll get out of timeout and we can continue with our day. He was not gonna say he was sorry. No, he was not gonna do it. And so, I was finally like, all right, get out of timeout. Like you're just not going to do it. So yeah, it's those expectations are kind of different sometimes. So I've been trying to kind of be more flexible and not be so strict in my expectations of what's going to happen in motherhood.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Aisha, especially with social media is, I'm obviously now targeted for all the kid and baby stuff. And so I'll be scrolling and seeing these perfect playrooms or these babies, doing these developmental skill games. And I'm like, oh, we'll try it. And I, give my kids the puzzle and think they'll just grab and do it. Nope, they just eat it or throw it. Or I'm like, wait, aren't you supposed to be doing that? And so I kind of, after trying these things and trying to be what I see on social media, I'm like, no, we'll figure it out on our own. And I think going back, another thing I wish I I think I kind of knew it, but I wish I had prepared a bit more, was financially. And I think we are going to have another hashtag Law Moms podcast to talk about finances of being a mom. That'll come out in the future. But just this year, again, the cost of, being discharged from the hospital, you still have bills, and then the cost of diapers. We've got twins, and so we've got double diapers. Luckily, we were gifted a ton of diapers and they lasted about 8 or 9 months. And then I only was able to breastfeed probably for 6 or 8 weeks. So we had to get formula. And so the cost of formula is super expensive. And then there's a shortage. So then I'm worrying about whether my kids are going to have milk to eat or not, and trying to find milk that doesn't make them spit up and that they like. And so that was kind of stressful, but all of that has been pretty expensive. And luckily, with the kind of jobs that we have, we're able to do it. But I sometimes, when I'm paying $50 for a pack of diapers, I sometimes wonder how people with lower means are able to do that. So I don't know, with that's our list of questions that we've prepared. I don't know, Jensen and Asia, maybe you guys have some other things to add or share before we close up.
I think I have like 2 other pieces of advice. And I literally just forgot the first one because I also have mom brain. So, but the second one, kind of what you were saying, Allison, is it is so hard to not compare what your kid is doing to other kids. And so my middle son, we did early intervention therapy. He had speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. So we had like weeks and weeks and weeks of constant appointments. And it was so hard to look at what other kids were doing and to not compare my kid and be like, did I do something wrong? Is it because like I should have been doing this with him? I should have been home with him more. I should have done all of this. But it doesn't help anybody in the end. And all it does is make you feel like a terrible person. And so kids, and he's fine now. You literally could never tell that he ever needed therapy. So that's something that I really struggled with. And just now on my 3rd kid, I'm like, well, he's the 3rd kid, he'll figure it out at some point. It's fine. He just started crawling and he turns a year-old in 2 weeks. So whatever, he'll figure it out. But it takes so long, and it doesn't help anybody to just sit and compare it and worry, is my kid doing enough? And the other thing is, it is okay to love your job and to have somebody else be with your kid during the day. And you don't have to feel guilty. It took me so long to not feel like I was abandoning my kids by putting them in daycare. And they love daycare. They have so many friends and their teachers are fantastic. And I know that they are doing great there. And I think it's okay to show them that I have a job that I love and that is important to me and that I can do that. And so those would be the 2 things that I would want to leave people with.
That's great advice, Jensen. I think I personally needed 2 things today. Aisha, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Jensen in the same way that it's just, you just have to be, you have to be able to roll with the punches and to just know your child, right? And focus on them, their needs, not compare them to others. I am a certain personality type where I'm like, all right, I'll just stay here and send like these 3 more emails that I need to send, right? And then I'm like, but why am I like, I just need to go to dinner with my child. Like, just go. No one's going to be upset with you if you don't send that one email at 5:05, right? So like, for me, it's more of like, I have to think about, okay, like, I need to make this time, and I would prefer to be doing those things anyway. And so I just, those are the things that I am trying to focus on. And it's kind of just like, it's a free-for-all out there. And so really it's just like, each person's different, each child is different, right? My child hates daycare right now. He cries every time I take him. And like gets my leg and like says, please don't leave me, I love you, like don't leave me. And I'm like, oh Lord, what am I doing? Right, I'm abandoning my child. What But yeah, don't feel bad. I've heard that they will get over that. So yeah, it's just not, I think it's not lowering expectations, but just coming to it with a sense of like, all right, let's just see what happens today, right? Let's roll with the punches. Let's figure out how to navigate this. And there's no like perfect way. There's no like 100% correct way. You're just learning the entire time. And so that's what I'll say is just like, don't expect perfection. Don't compare. Just do what you have to do in your situation, right?
Thanks, Asia. Great advice. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Again, this is the hashtag Law Moms podcast from the Committee on Women in Legal Profession. I'm going to do a couple plugs. So it's free to join the Committee on Women in the Legal Profession. You can go to the State Bar website and find the committee's page under the leadership tab, and email Jensen or Erin Marshall, who are our current co-chairs, and we can get you signed up for free so that you are on our email list and know about our meetings and the different activities and programs that we have going on. And then also on December 8th, we are going to do a online symposium. And so this is our second or third year doing this, where we've got great speakers and CLEs that are focused on the law and being a woman in the legal profession. So be on the lookout for that information. And so with that, thanks Asia Brooks and Jensen Wallace for participating and sharing your experiences as a mom. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you for listening. This episode was produced by the State Bar of New Mexico's Member Services Department. All editing and sound mixing was done by Blue Sky eLearn. Intro music is by Kevin McLeod at Incomtech. The views of the presenters are that of their own, are not endorsed by the State Bar of New Mexico. Nothing said